Hey everyone, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Brandon. I am a cybersecurity account executive, and today is Daily Cyber. We're going to be having a great guest and great conversation about cybersecurity and threat intelligent information. So make sure you have something to drink. You have a lot of notepads to take some information on. I want to go through a little bit of housekeeping just before we get started. If you guys have any questions, make sure you ask. We have great monitors, Sec IT guys in the actual channel right now. He's going to be there making sure that we get all your questions answered. So this is going to be a great episode. So grab a coffee, grab a tea, and let's hack at it. I'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, Usado. Usado is a Canadian-based cybersecurity company that provides 24/7 cybersecurity support and compliance service that align their customers' tolerance for risk, their clients, suppliers, and government contractual mandates. Usado's teams focus on using insights to drive business decisions. There's no need to leave strategies to chance, when insights can be used to show what changes need to be made and how to make them. Usado offers multiple services to help companies simplify IT, centralize cybersecurity management, and meet compliance standards. Usado can customize their service to work with your existing IT network and programs. For more information, contact Usado at info@uzado.com or visit their website at www.uzado.com. Awesome, guys. Awesome. A lot going on today. So yeah, let me give you a little fast introduction about James. James is the founder and CEO of Whackpack Labs. Jim McKee has a background in information security consulting and has been an active member in InfraGard. He was the co-founder of two companies which developed multi-factor authentication, encryption, and voice signature technologies for the use in the payment process industry. He was the founder of Payday Corporation, the world leader in enterprise-wide payment software in 1996, grew the enterprise from a small business maintaining a staff of 5 people to a successful international operation with over 175 employees. In 2000, Payday was sold to CyberSource Corporation for $142 million, which was then acquired by Visa for $2.4 billion. Yes, B with a bill, like B for the billion. Jim then went on to co-found the lead company that became Payment System Group in St. Louis and based payment technology company. So we're gonna have Jim on here in a second, and we're gonna be talking about just a lot about cybersecurity and what's going on in the industry. So a little housekeeping. Want to thank you guys. Just don't forget to go into the chat. Make sure you ask lots of questions about what's going on in the industry, what you need to know. We're going to make sure that you get all your answers, all your questions answers today. I want to thank Cyber in Security for hosting us on this amazing platform with you guys. It's really giving us a great platform to educate and connect with a lot of great experts in the field when it comes to cybersecurity and help you guys learn, if you guys are breaking into the industry, what you need to know about cybersecurity, but also the guys that are advanced help the community to kind of grow and learn what's out there, what you're going to really expect when you get in the industry. So I want to say thank you guys so much for the coming out, collaborating, sharing some information, asking some good questions, and then I'm really excited about getting this episode started. So let me bring Jim in and let's get started.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here today.
Oh, what a great day, huh?
Beautiful day. Beautiful day.
So how have you been with everything that's going on with the pandemic?
Well, we pretty much didn't have that big of a problem with the pandemic. I don't want to underestimate it, but most of our analysts have worked from home, from the beginning. And so, to do cyber threat intelligence, you don't have to be sitting in a cubicle, in an office building somewhere. And it doesn't really matter what time zone you're in, because there are threats to be investigated, all day long and all night long. We do maintain offices in New Boston, New Hampshire. That's where our research lab is. But all the analysts are like me. They're sitting in a very comfortable place with their dog at their feet, and they're helping protect us from the next cyber threat. So that's the way we go.
So now you're talking about cyber threat. Like, is this something, and I'm gonna be kind of the devil's advocate here. Is this something that we really need to be concerned about day in and day out? Should we be kind of like, don't worry about it? You know, just something the news starts to throw out. These cybersecurity guys are just trying to scare us.
Not in the least. You know, we've all had experiences with, you know, our personal, private, and financial information being lifted from. I'm going to use company names because they've been in the news. If anyone had purchased anything at Target or Home Depot, you know, their credit card information, their buying history was out there.
Well, look at Equifax.
Yeah, if you had health insurance from Anthem, you know, right. they pulled your records, and people say, well, why are those important? It's like, you know, since the pandemic, thank you for bringing it up, Brandon, is all the unemployment claims that went out there, all this fraud. How do you think all these accounts got put into the system to get free money? Well, right. They stolen identities. And what better way to steal an identity than to have your name, address, your telephone number, your next of kin, your email address, your social security number, your date of birth. Well, you can sign up for any benefit with all that information. Right. And so people that said, what me worry, who, you know, that's Alfred Newman from Mad Magazine for any of the older, the more mature ladies and gentlemen that are on the phone here who remember going to the drugstore and being so excited when the new issue came out. So right. What me worry, we've been using that in cybersecurity for 20 years now. Right. But the whole point is yes, the pandemic has been horrible. You know, the fraud that's been going on with benefits, and people say, well, why should I worry about, you know, this, you know, cyber threats? Well, here's the result. The cyber threat was successful. The information, the files were stolen, and now we're all paying for it.
Right. And I know your expertise, or one of the expertise you talk about, is cyber threat intelligence. Why is it important to collect or learn about cyber threat intelligence?
Well, you need to know who's after you. Okay. And when I say you, it can be you because you've decided that this thing here, I won't mention any trade names, but this is turned into people's communication device and their computer. And they're storing passwords, they're doing financial transactions, they're buying things, and they're you know, your information, your credit card information, your banking information is going through this network. Right. Well, you need to keep the bad guys from getting your data. And as a consumer, you've got to use good password management to keep people out, keep hackers out. And from the business standpoint, if you are a retailer or a bank or insurance company, you've got to protect your client's data. And right. The only way you can to protect your client's data is to be in a position to block the adversaries who are trying to break into your system. Okay. And it can be the network, it can be the servers, but they always look for the weak links. And to block them from getting in, you've got to have intelligence of who is trying to break into the systems. And there are many services out there, monitoring services that can tell you what's going on, who had a hack, what the command and control looks like. But more importantly, from the intelligence standpoint, we at Walpack Labs, Red Sky Alliance, we are providing the intelligence to customers to tell them who is trying to break in, who's trying to breach, but hasn't gotten in yet. Okay. Now, that's a very deep statement there. You know, you can do all sorts of things to keep people out, but if you know who they are trying to break in the first place, you can make sure they can't get in. And that's the value of cyber threat intelligence. So
now, probably, I don't know if you guys are asking this, but I'm trying to find this out for myself. How are you collecting that data? Like I know with physical security, if you see someone with a rock outside your house, you're like, that guy's trying to break into my house. I got that. I can see where he is. But what about like the cyber intelligence that you're talking about, like when you can't see them, right? How are you collecting that data?
Well, we've been in business for almost 10 years, and we've set up collections and sources, and we were scraping the dark web, the Tor network, the onion router for other older people out there. We've been collecting information and putting it into our database, and then using that information to protect entities that, come to us for services. And you'd say, okay, how do you do that?
Right.
Well, we've developed software and services that allow us to collect the information that is only applicable to a particular entity. Okay. There are companies out there like Splunk, who is the big fire hose of data, which is fantastic if you have enough staff to parse down what is important to you, right, to your company. What we did is we took a different view and said, we need to deliver the actionable intelligence to clients. They need to know who is attacking them, not attacking a company like theirs or a company in their state or their country. Right. They need to know who is attacking them. Right. And we can do that, and we do it with our collections and our sources. And so we present that information to our clients to help keep the hackers out in the first place.
So now they take that information. So I kind of understand the chain of events here. They take that information, then they look at measures of remediation.
Well, they can put it into their SIM and blacklist it. And so right there, they are effectively keeping them out. Right. I've been on a number of podcasts, and I do sales presentations almost every day and try to explain how and why this is important. We have services that I have described as your home smoke alarm. You know what? If your smoke alarm goes off, you need to pay attention. Something's not right. With our cyber threat intelligence, it's a smoke alarm. You've got a problem, and we've pointed out the problem to you. We're not the firemen. We're not going to come over with the hose, but we're going to tell you, like the smoke alarm, you have a problem and you need to do something about it. And so that's the value of intelligence. And anyone that's watched, a old war movie or a spy movie, what's the value of intelligence? The intelligence is you need to know what your adversary is planning on doing. And it can be plans, it can be tactics, it can be strategies, it can be a USB drive that someone finds on the parking lot and says, "Oh, I wonder what this is," and I'm going to go in the office and plug it in and see if I can return it to the rightful owner.
We hear about that when people do pen testing, right? When they do physical pen, they'll drop a USB stick and see if an employee will go and plug that in.
Yes. And so, the cyber threat intelligence is part of an overall program. We're not going to replace, virus, virus software or firewalls or just good hygiene in anybody's business or organization. This is just one more service, one more tool that can make your other defenses more effective, because we're going to be blacklisting these things, and that is like game over. Right. And the thing is the techniques and the command and controls are always changing. There are more bots out there than you can count. And the thing is the adversaries don't sleep. They're working around the time zones, around the globe. And early on, I would talk to people and they'd say, "Oh, we've got everything we need, Jim. Thanks for coming by, but we're okay." And it's like, you don't know what the next 14-year-old kid in his parents' basement in, Cleveland, Ohio, or some PhD graduate from Petersburg University in Russia is going to figure out how to untie the Gordian knot. Right. And that's the thing. This is a dynamic adversary. They're dynamic adversaries. Right. And so you as a consumer, as a business person, as an administrator, You have to continue to stay in front of the threats.
Right.
And unless you're getting intelligence on the threats that are targeting you, you're really going into a fight with one arm tied behind your back.
For sure.
You know? And I'm not going to go down the whole OSINT versus proprietary, but if it's OSINT, even the bad guys know that they're listed in there.
So before you go on there, just as we got some new people on here, what does OSINT stand for?
Open source intelligence.
And what is that exactly?
Well, that's the kind of intelligence and data that the big providers will provide. And if you're using, like a Fortinet or a Cisco, box, you're going to get updates, and they're going to be updating you with things that they have found, that their suppliers who supply information them have found. But it's just the general stuff. It's not what's targeting you.
Right.
And I have this conversation a couple times a day with people. It's like, you need to know who's targeting your company, not the threats that are global. Global threats are good, and the basic equipment and services that every company buys, you're getting covered by that. But you're not getting the information on what is exactly targeting you. For years, I used the silly story of the Siberian sleigh driver. He doesn't care about all the wolves in the world. He doesn't care about all the wolves in Siberia. He only cares about that one wolf that's chasing his sled.
Right.
And that is about as easy as I can explain it. People need to be concerned about what is targeting them, not targeting everybody else in the world.
Right. So let's kind of go there. We've got a lot of great information. We've got some guys that are asking some questions right now.
Good. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, let's have some fun. There's some good questions coming up. Some people asking some career questions too. And because you've worked with a lot of staff, it might help with your guidance and recommendations.
Be happy to answer any question.
Awesome. So this one gentleman asked, hey guys, not sure if this is the right place to ask, but I feel stuck in my quest to set myself up for success in cybersecurity/IT. I thought my first task should be learning Python, but I'm not feeling stuck after going through most of the beginning tutorials. So I'm thinking he's trying to learn Python programming. He's looking at security IT. Do you think that's the right path to go?
It's one of the paths. Everyone we've hired over the past 10 years either knew Python or we taught them Python, because that is how they can churn through a whole lot of data and pull out what's important. And so Python is a good skill.
Right.
I have a bookcase full of books, and every one of them is good from one standpoint. What I would do if I was a young person.
Okay. If you were starting back out again and you were young.
Yeah. If I was young, what I would do is I'd find a mentor. I would find a grizzled guy who knew, or grizzled girl, whatever the case may be. I got to make sure I'm equal opportunity here. But cybersecurity is the kind of thing you really learn by doing, and you need some guidance. And it's when I was little and my father was fixing stuff, and I would watch him, and he'd show me how to fix things, from a lawnmower to a hedge clipper. And it was looking over his shoulder and seeing what he was doing, and more importantly, telling me things, don't do that,
Right.
Don't open up that cover until it's unplugged, simple things like that, which we all needed to know as young people. But, SANS has courses there. There's a cornucopia of free training out there. And there's even more than there was 10 years ago. But there are free training courses out there. There are colleges that you can take courses and pay no tuition. But just go out and do a Bing or Google search, and you can start off at 101 and work your way up. But the best way is to find someone who's in the biz who will let you co-pilot with them for a while, because they'll show you how things really work.
For sure. And I think to add on to that, theory, if you can read, if you can study and then go with your mentor, it gives you a little bit up, because then you have like at least a base knowledge or framework. Then you go, okay, hey, you know what? I've learned this. How does this work? How does this work in your environment, your position? And keep doing that back and forth, because your learning curve will go faster. Right?
Exactly. That is excellent advice.
Versus, as you know, like if you're kind of learning about a car and they're not talking about the engine, but if you at least got like the manual of the book, okay, well, at least here's the engine, here's the transmission, here's the oil pan, all that. You can go, hey, Dad, so the oil pan does that. He goes, oh, don't touch that. It's hot, right? Don't open that when the oil comes out, right? Don't touch the filter until it's cool. I got tools for that. You kind of go, okay, but at least you kind of have a base knowledge, and then they kind of correct you as you go, and your learning curve is a lot faster.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. So next question we got here from Scriptkid Cuddy. Question. I started my first IT job at a data center as a technician, but I want to be a cybersecurity. I want to be in cybersecurity. Will this job open the door to that field? So the
answer is yes.
Data center. He's a data center technician. He wants to get into cybersecurity. Yeah,
that's a good start. Most people start as a system admin, and other people, started by, being the guy that set up the new computers for people. You've got to get your hands dirty doing this. You've got to be into something. Working in the data center, there are all sorts of applications running. You need to learn a little bit more about them. You need to learn about, the network connections. It's a great place. And what you're doing, plus a little bit of coursework and some evenings instead of, watching TV, unless you're watching an instruction video. The whole thing is that you're in a really great position for this. And I'm going to jump forward just a couple of steps into, there are a number of certifications out there that are very valuable. And I'm just going to say they're not that hard to get. Cisco has a whole list of them, and you can pretty much take a tutorial and take a test. Because when you're wanting to move from the data center into information security, the first questions people are going to say is, do you have any certifications? And the answer better be yes, because you can work your way up to the granddaddy, which is the CISSP, but you don't have to start there. You're better off using these other certifications as building blocks. And if you want to learn about the Meraki boxes or the Fortinet boxes, those are all really good things to know. And those certifications are going to open up doors for you, because it's like 25, 30 years ago when you got a Microsoft certification. We had software developers, and they would take some of those Microsoft tests, and it was like, that was what you needed to do to prove yourself.
So one thing I want to add to that is, when you're in your data center, you're in the IT job, think of it as the blue team, right? The one question you want to ask yourself as the blue team, and this is where it comes good questions to really get into, how do I harden this? How do I secure it? You want to be in security, get your mindset wrapped around that versus just setting it up. Because when you start going through your resume, you can talk about you hardened the data center, you secured the data center, you prevented any attacks from it. That was what your job and role was, of being the blue team, of setting up and configuring and supporting it. So if you have those, you put that question in your mind is, how can I harden this? How can I secure it? How can I protect it? Do that day in and day out. And now you're getting the security path. And then your resume, write out those projects. I did this. I did that. I did this. This is how I hardened it. This is how I secured it. Now what happens was, when a recruiter or a hiring manager looks at it, they look at all the security projects you've done, right? Versus, I just set up a data center. I set up Amazon. I just did that. Okay. But how does that relate to security? Ask yourself really good questions. One of the things I'm learning more and more about will help you to answer your path and your direction. So the question I ask is, how are you securing it? How are you hardening it? And how are you protecting it? If you can go in that with that mindset day in and day out, that definitely is going to be a security role later.
That is the best point, Brandon. I wished I'd said it, but I'm just going to add a little bit to that. Sure. Because part of the hardening is, put yourself in the role of the red team. If I was the red team, where would I go? what would I do? But, you know, you got your yin and your yang here, because hardening is going to keep the red team out. But you also have to think like the red team and say, if I was a red teamer, what is the weak spot here? And then you put your blue team hat back on, say, I'm hardening that. So you see, Brandon, you're right on the money there. That's awesome. You could write a book and sell it on Amazon.
There you go. There you go. Well, I have the stream, right? There we go. We can monetize this, right?
Yeah.
So next question for Jim. What certification do you look for, and what certification would you recommend to someone to get an entry-level job? And now I'm going to caveat that in cybersecurity.
Well, they're more acronyms than there are letters in the alphabet.
Right.
And so I can't pull one off the top of my head here. I've got really smart people who are my team, and they know what to look for and what questions to ask the young people as they're coming in. So I'm just going to take a pass on that one and say I can't tell you which one, but a couple are good. And that's the way I'm going to leave it here. You know, I told Brandon early on, if I don't have the answer to the question, I'm not going to pretend like I do.
So for me, I'll tell you this. Go to the job, whatever job you want to get. Do a Google search, Indeed, you know, LinkedIn jobs, whatever that may be. Look at the qualifications and see what they're asking for requirements, certifications, and then work your way that way. Entry-level jobs, you'll probably see Security Plus, right? You might see CISSP, but that's generally not an entry-level job. But you'll see kind of Security Plus. It's a lot of the CompTIA ones you'll see on that. That's generally ones that get you in, and that would normally you'll be like a security analyst, maybe even working at a SOC level 1. Those are those jobs. But then you want to look at where's that your jump off point to what? Are you going to pen testing? Are you going to something else? Because if you're going to pen testing, then you look at certified ethical hacking. You're looking at OSCP. You're looking at all these other certifications. So you got to know the path of what you want to go, and then reverse engineer, work your way back to where you want to go. So again, I know we get a lot of these questions about like, what's the best certification? What's the best job first? What's the best job? And then work your way back. Hack that. If you can hack that, you're going to be a lot more successful versus us saying, you know, go get your CISSP. If you don't like management, you don't like being kind of a managerial role, you're going to hate the CISSP. If you're a pen tester, a hacker, and that's what you love to do, you're going to go OSCP, you're going to go that direction. So you got to know where you want to go.
That's a very good point, Brandon. The other thing I like to add is at my company, we pay the testing fees and the certifications for people who want to move up. And I would, if I was a young person and I was getting in and I had some certifications, one of the questions I would ask is, how will you, Mr. Boss, Ms. Boss, how are you going to help support me in becoming a better analyst? And the answer better be, well, we're going to encourage you to take more courses and get more certifications. And I'm going to say, well, are you going to pay for these? And the answer should be yes. Right. Sometimes it's not, but if you want to move on from that entry-level job and get a higher paying job somewhere else, you need to take it on yourself. But we've always paid for those things for our people, because there's nothing better than having an intern come on board, work for us for a couple of years, and then go off and get an outstanding job somewhere else. That's what we do.
So let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask this because probably some of the guys are still asking, you know, career type questions. Would you hire someone without any experience?
Depending on, okay. All right. We have hired military vets with no experience. And our offices are in New Boston, New Hampshire. There is a VA hospital in Manchester, New Hampshire, which is not that far away. Yes, we have hired military veterans who, you know, some of them were disabled. We hired them and we brought them in and we trained them from the ground floor up. Nice. And we looked at that as part of our mission.
Right. To give back for their service.
To give back for their service. So the answer is yes. But if you came to me as a fry cook from McDonald's, I would talk to you about how I really think you need to do some studying before you come back and interview again. But for the military veterans, especially the disabled ones, that is our mission, because the company was founded by, you know, military vets, and we think that we owe these men and women, our time.
Yeah, for their service. No, and I completely agree. And I wanted to ask that question because I think one of the things where there's a gap in the industry right now is we're short of resources, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to organization, they need good quality resources, and being able to have people that are willing to do what that needs to do. Like, for example, training, certification, self-study, doing all that, labs at home to get your foot in the door. And then once you do, like you just said, a lot of great companies, once you get your foot in the door, they'll help you accelerate your career.
Exactly.
Awesome. So next question, question for the panel. How do they manage their collection platform? What type of int gives the best payday for actionable intelligence? Also, do they have any issues of running into collections on U.S. persons, or is it only a federal issue?
Wow, I don't know where to begin that. There are like 6 questions in there at once. So let me take the easy side of that.
Okay.
We parse through, lots of data. We have our database has over 5 billion IPs in it. Okay, and we are updating our database every 14 seconds. So we collect a whole lot of data. We do not collect personal, private, and financial information. So I'm not in a position where GDPR or the new GDPR in Canada is going to come chasing me around, because I don't collect data like that.
Right.
I collect IPs and domains, and I have a malware petting farm, and I actually identify and find cyber actors. Okay. I've worked with the attorneys on this for years to make sure that we're not collecting and saving anything that is going to get me in any, get sued later. If some big Chinese hacker wants to come sue me here, I'd say, yeah, come on over and learn how it works in the U.S. legal system.
Right.
But, we aren't collecting, personal information and home addresses and social security numbers and stuff like that. Anything that could be deemed as I'm holding on to this information against local or federal regulations. So I think I answered most of that, Brandon. Did I miss anything there?
Which is the intelligence gives the biggest payday for actionable intelligence?
Okay. The payday, I guess, is the helping a company not be hacked in the first place. I think that's the payday for all of us, is there's another company that didn't fall to malware or fall to ransomware. Right. I have services at all different price points. And so, I have SMB model prices, and I have enterprise prices. And so payday, sure, I'd love to sell more enterprise, but 2 years ago, I looked at the 95% of US and Canadian businesses that had no cyber threat intelligence. And I took services that we were already doing, modified them, and made them smaller and cheaper and more targeted to take care of that ever growing segment of SMB that has no protection. So there are paydays to be made on volume, and there are paydays to be made, on enterprise.
And I think I want to add to that is, like, when you talk about payday, you got to think of, you're giving them the intelligence. It depends on what the company does with it.
Right.
Right. So it could be the best information. You could give them your company on Monday morning is going to get ransomware. You could give them, they're going to come this way. This is the direction, but depends on how they use that information too. If they ignore it, they don't implement any strategies, security measures, it could be the best information, but it depends how they use it.
Well, let me give you an example.
Sure.
If there's some old grizzle guys out there, they probably remember the Nitro attacks of 2000 and 2005. They were using the Nitro attacks were on the defense industrial base in the United States. They used a piece of malware called Poison or Poison Ivy. And we studied it. We had it in our petting farm, and we showed people how to defend against it. Talking about intelligence, we discovered from our sources in the Asian basin that there was going to be an attack on the New York banks. And we found out through our sources that they were going to use poison ivy as the attacker. They attacked malware.
Right.
Well, what we did, because we had New York banks as our clients, and also we were contributing members to the FSISAC in the United States, and they're global. They have FSISAC in Canada and all around the world. But we got to our clients, our client group, and the FSISAC and said, all right, you need to take your servers down at midnight on a particular weekend. Just turn them off, because we have command of a number of Oriental languages and European languages and I have to say this properly, Saudi, Asia Minor languages.
Middle Eastern?
Middle Eastern. I was reaching for that.
But,
I have to be politically correct. But the whole point is our intelligence told us that there was going to be a massive attack. And because of that intelligence, we had all these banks turn off their servers at midnight. And when the attack came, there was no place for the attack to go.
Wow. Okay.
And that's the value of intelligence in the enterprise world. And we couldn't even be lauded for what we did. It was one of those things that, hey guys, we owe you. But we were able to determine this. From our sources in Shanghai, we knew this thing was coming, and we told them to turn them off. And it was just beautiful. So you're looking for a payday. Here's another payday thing. Our payday was we saved banks and depositors and investors. We saved them a whole lot of money and aggravation by making sure that attack failed.
Okay. No, that makes sense, right? And you did the actions they implemented by shutting down the servers, that you gave them the intelligence, they took action, and then they throw it off that actual attack, right? Which is great. And
if they would have said, "Oh, Jim, you're daydreaming again," and it would have been, you know what, I stake my reputation on this. This is what you should do. And if they didn't do it, well, then
they would have been in the news.
It would have been, I'm really sorry. Maybe the next time I come to you with something, maybe you'll listen.
Well, they would have been in the news, right? They would have been.
Oh, they would have been in the news, and then
bank got hacked, right?
Yeah, and then if I wanted to be really mean, I could have gone to the news and said, here are copies of the emails I sent to these bank CISOs and warning them of this, and they were remiss. And then what would happen? Well, then the lawyers would have come out and would have wanted me to be an expert witness for the lawsuits, which I don't want to ever be involved in. So I would never have considered doing that. But that would have been the I told you so. But I'd rather just not be the world's biggest jerk.
Right. True. That's true. So next question by Morrison. He's got two questions here. Do they incorporate deception into their game plan? And then he asked, does IoT facilitate a better understanding of the threats that are out there?
IoT is probably one of the biggest threats we have here, because the Internet of Things has opened up everything. Whoever thought people would be doing their banking on an iPhone? Whoever thought that, that people would be bring your own device into your office? One of the scariest things for CISOs and sysadmins and people is the fact that there's a new device in their network, or a new device in their Wi-Fi. Right. Where did this come from? Who's using it? So that just opens up so many bad things. And, we talked about the pandemic early on in the call, and I'm just going to circle back of the work from home. A number of us have worked from home for years, because we have dynamite. How do I say? We have VPNs. We got dynamite security. Important things are all encrypted. We know how to protect ourselves. But what happens when people are working from home? You've got a husband and wife team working from home. Their kids are not in school. The kids are using Zoom, and they have one computer or maybe two computers. Right. Well, when the kids aren't in school and the parents aren't doing work, the kids are out there playing around on the web, making friends and doing stupid stuff. Well, then the device gets infected, and then that infection is going to go back to, you know, the employers of the husband and wife team. So you're really opening up some really bad things. Now, there's a solution here. What we did with one of our cyber threat intelligence services is we told our clients, take the IPs from your work at home people, put them in here, and we can protect them. We can tell you when they're under attack. Right. And people said, well, that sounds really good, but what if it's one of these shared IP things? They said, well, it's not perfect. Right. You know, we always try to have static IPs to protect ourselves. And I used to pay the Bell system a premium to have a static IP. Right. Well, the dynamic IPs are always changing. It's a little bit harder, but we might be helpful there too. So it's just, you know, work from home, you know, the Internet of Things, you're just making it so much harder for your cyber threat staff to stay in front of the hackers.
For sure. So next question I have is, what are some of the best options to look for a mentor?
Oh, okay. You need to find somebody, you know, a family friend is just about the best way to go. And I don't know everybody's family situation, but the thing is if you're in school, the school can give you some vectors, or the guidance counselor can give you some vectors. If you are no longer in school and you're out there working a day job, well, as Brandon already said, go take a look at Indeed and some of the jobs out there. And if it's close, and I always say, well, you know, don't try to do something with a firm that's 200 miles away. If there's a firm in your neighborhood, your ADI, that would be an easy drive or bus ride over. You go over there and you dress for success. You know, you ask if there's an opportunity to do an internship and prove yourself to them. And that's how that mentorship is going to work out best. Right. I live in a small ski town in Northwest Colorado. Looking for an information security mentor out here would be pretty hard. And I'm just saying it that way. In a small town, it's going to be hard. All towns have a bank. I would go to the bank and ask to see who's in charge of their, or the government center, the county seat. Go to where you know there's going to be, you know, system IT people working, and make a friend. That's the easiest way to do it. You know, we have little banks here. You know, they occasionally contact me and say, "Hey, Jim, my hair's on fire." You know, it's like, fine, I'm more than happy to help. But the whole point is, you've got to make it easy for them, and you've got to make it easy for yourself.
I also want to add, you got to look how you position it too. Like,
yes.
If you're going for someone that's senior, and you got to look at how can you help them.
Right.
If you make it about you, a lot of these guys are busy. A lot of these guys are busy. A lot of these guys have, you know, other people asking them, right? You might not be the only one. So it's the way you position it too. Like if I was going to ask Jim if he could mentor me, I would reach out to Jim and say, Jim, I saw that you're doing a lot of, you know, cybersecurity threat intelligence. What are some of the things that you need help with, or I could help you with?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's very important, because you've got to come in with a benefit statement. If you let me co-pilot with you, I'm going to bring the following skills, and I can help you with this. Right. And that's what we get back to, you know, taking some courses online. You can't just walk in as a fry cook and say, I want you to teach me all this. And we have to turn down interns every semester, just from the standpoint that it's an investment of our time to mentor and work with them. And people have to do their jobs and protect our clients. And we're not running a school. You know, as sad as it is, we can't have everybody as an intern.
And there's good, like, and let's kind of be honest here. If you're looking for information, YouTube videos, our stream, like everything, there's a lot of great resources out there to learn. Right now, if you want to look at applying, like applied knowledge, like Jim talked about before, volunteer, non-for-profit charities are always looking for resources, people to help out that you can volunteer and apply what you're learning, and then go back and watch and learn and go and read and come back and keep that kind of program up for yourself and that pattern, because you'll start to excel. And then you can ask people, like, as you come into the stream, hey, Brandon, hey, Jim, hey, Neil, I had this one situation. How do I get through that? And we'll help you to answer that. And this is going to help you evolve. And this is the hustle. When you're in this field, I'm going to tell you, everyone, this goes for everyone. Take a little bit of a break, guys. I want you to hear this. This is a field you do not stop learning, right? And you gotta hustle. As soon as you think you've made it, you're done in this field. You're not going to progress. All of us are always constantly reading, learning, developing, learning from other people. I'm sure Jim can tell you stories of things he's learned from people he's worked with. Also his team. We're always learning. We're always going to the next level. We're always studying. We're always reviewing. So when you're getting out there and you want a mentor, you got to think in that mindset that like, how can I help you? What can I do? How can I evolve? And this is going to help you excel in your career.
Brandon, you brought up a very good point about not-for-profit. If you went to a school or a church or your local, United Way and said, I'm trying to get into this, do you need some help? We all started off with a broom and a dustpan somewhere in our lives. And if you start off with that in the server room, well, at least you're in the place you want to be if you're sweeping up the server room.
And the guys around, hey, do you mind me asking, what are you guys doing? Do you guys need me to help you hold the wires? You need to. I remember like my first help desk job, I was helping sometimes when they were doing projects, just hold the racks, right? Help them wire things, right? And they were like, can you help us do this? Can you hold this? Can you do it? Yeah. So why are you doing that? And then why are you, crimping the wire and doing that in that port? And why are you enabling that port? And then all of a sudden it started to evolve where now I knew what they were doing their switch. Now I knew why they were enabling it. Now I knew why the daisy, and I started to learn because I just was helpful.
And that's a very good point. Most of us started off somewhere along the way with a wire in our hands, or, the things that put the cute little plastic thing, the RJ45s on. You had to make sure those strands of wires were in the right order when you put them in before you crimped them. Yeah, we all learned how to do that.
I remember that. And you're sitting there and you're trying to hold them all and you're trying to get the thing on and crimp it. And then you put it in and you test it and you're like, so you have to cut it off and do it again.
Cut another 1.5 inches off and start over. Yeah, we've all been there. And there's nothing wrong with that because, I started off in the Bell system in 1978. I was green as green can be, but I learned telephony. Right. And then years and years later, guess what information security was? Telephony. Right. And it was like I was going through the CISSP book and go, oh my God, I learned this at the training center in Dallas, Texas back in the 70s. They were still wires. They were just carrying different things.
Wow. So guys, just want to kind of catch in, just a little housekeeping here. If you guys want to follow Jim, I'll get secure IT guy to actually put in the chat my socials as well as Jim's socials as well, so you guys can follow us. Jim, I'm sorry about this, but you're gonna get a lot of LinkedIn connections. You're gonna get a lot of people reaching out to you, but at least you guys can kind of reach out, ask Jim questions about what you're going on in your career. If you guys want to know a little bit more about the cyber and threats and the intelligence, check him out on his website. It's actually www.waypacklabs.com. That will be sent out to that as well, so you guys can check that out. Now we got lots more questions. You ready, Jim?
I'm ready.
Okay. So in an application of AI for mechatronics or robotical devices regarding cybersecurity issues or threats, what will be your advice as training as a professional career path as others things that I may ignore? Interesting. So I think he's looking at, in an application of AI, mechanics and robotics devices regarding cybersecurity issues and threats, what would be your advice for training, right, and a professional career path?
Well, that's a really, really big question. First thing you need to do is you need to understand what AI is and what ML is, artificial intelligence and machine learning. I'm actually lucky because when we built the world's first enterprise payment server in 1995, we put AI in it when people really didn't even know what we were talking about. But we taught our payment server how to deliver the credit card transactions at the lowest transaction rate in record speed. That was basically what we did. We built a server. So you need to understand what AI can do and what its limitations are. And AI has to learn. You have to continue to teach it what you want it to do. So it's not just this magic thing. Same with machine learning. It's not just this magic thing that knows. You have to continue to teach it what you want it to do. Robotics is mechanical stuff. And we all, us older, mature gentlemen, we had erector sets when we were little, and we made things. We actually made things. We weren't just playing on the internet. So when you're looking at robotics, you have to have the mechanical skills to make sure that the arm will do this and how to fine tune it so the arm doesn't then go through the glass window.
Right.
You have to have, we get back into things like, well, did you measure twice before you cut once? It's right. Like the whole thing. You've got to have the mechanical skills to be able to make the robotics. And then you need the software that is then going to make the robotics work. But then you're adding yet one more level of complication there with the machine learning or the AI, because you want this machine to do the same thing either over and over again, which is easy because that's just a repetitive task. But if you want it to start doing something else, you have to have the path of teaching the AI what you want it to do.
Okay.
So that was a roundabout way, and I hope I touched everything, but I just want people to know that AI is not going to be the end all. And I had many conversations over the past few years of AI in cyber threat intelligence. Well, it all sounds really good, but early in my call today, I said, you cannot predict what a Petersburg University PhD is going to come up with, or a 14-year-old kid is going to come up with. And that's where AI in cyber threat intelligence falls on its face. We've all looked at predictive analysis. I've been an analyst for a long time and tried to, you load values and you try to figure out what is most important. You don't ever want to use predictive analysis, how do I say, unfairly by loading particular factors, so then you can say, I predicted this. We're still in the unknown here. And AI is not going to be the end game. And there are people investing billions of dollars thinking that they're going to figure out where the next cyber threat's going to come from. And for my 20 years in this business, no one can predict that.
Wow. Okay, so next question. It seems like every time I learn something, more it leads to me learning 10 more things I don't know. How do I avoid getting overwhelmed?
You take it a step at a time. You build, back in the sales days, you had a quota. You couldn't sell everybody everything every day. You had to take bites of it. And so what I would do is I would take a look at your direction and then take the pieces one at a time that you think are going to be the most important ones for reaching your goal. We all wanted to cure cancer. We all wanted to, build the spaceship to the moon. We knew we couldn't do that, but along the way, we all learned things that took us in different directions. And so, my analysts are always coming up with new things. They say, hey, Jim, we found this. We put a new honey net out here and we found this. It's like, great. Okay, Now, where is that going to go into our collection? You know, I hate to use the word monetize. It's not how are we going to monetize this? How can we better serve our clients with this new piece of information or this new source?
Right.
And that's the advice I would give you there, is you can't grab all the data in the world. Splunk has done that. And Splunk has not all the data, but most of the data in the world. Well, that's great. But then it takes a team of people to take what they need from that data. And that's why we did it the opposite way. We're only delivering what is important to them, not all the data in the world. We don't have all the data. We got a whole lot of data, but we've got important data that we feel people are going to draw on. Right. The other thing is that we've taken this data from so many sources, and as these sources go offline, like a posting in the dark web, you can't get it anymore. But we still have it. We have it in our collection because we might be able to use it later. And so that's where I look at some of these gargantuan feats of trying to do everything. You can't learn 10 new things every day. You've got to pick the ones that you think are the most important and then stair-step your way through them. And along the way, you're going to find that all 10 of those aren't really something that you're interested in. You might only find 4 of them, but you're taking it a step at a time instead of overwhelming yourself.
Well, one thing, I mean, the analogy is, you know, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
Exactly. Right. So no different from that analogy. Right. And the other thing is I recommend people is to do it. Something I've been studying recently is how we learn, how our mind consumes knowledge, you know, and how we evolve in our knowledge and our recall, as well as our retention and comprehension. Most people, not all, but most people can only sit for 20 minutes of consistent time and learn something. After 20 minutes, your mind starts to wander, shut down, right? So what happens is, if you find that you have 10 things, and then just going back to Tazar's kind of question, if you find you're going 10 things and then 10 things come up and then 10 things come up, and now you're up to 100 things you have to learn, take whatever you are starting with and just study it for 20 minutes. And the next day, do the next 20 minutes. And the next day, do another 20 minutes. And as you do that, it's going to compound, because all this information will start to come over, because a lot of it repeats, right? And then you'll find the differences, right? And you'll find what's unique. And now you'll just learn the uniqueness of what you're learning. So for example, if you're studying the CISSP, it's talking about policies and procedures and governance and security and all that. But then you read the CIO book, and all of a sudden, like 80% of it is policy, procedures, governance, and all that. But there's going to be a little bit different of business. And you're like, now you'll start to learn the differences, right? Now there's some things you might pivot. You might go from pen testing to a CISO role, and now it's completely different, right? And you're going to have a little bit of an up curve. But again, it's just small bite-sized pieces. Just go through it. You're not going to learn everything. So that's one recommendation of someone that's trying to master the skill of learning, because like Jim and I both have, you're always learning. So how do you master that so you keep learning, right?
Yeah.
So that's my recommendation.
Very good point. Very good point.
Next question we have here. Where do you see the industry of cybersecurity in the next 5 to 10 years as IoT get more incorporated into everyday life? How will the industry leaders ensure that people who govern are able to understand that the thin line of illegal collection on people and prevention of cybersecurity threats? So you're getting a lot of compound questions.
Okay. I'm going to take this a bite at a time. What I see is one of the big problems that's going to be coming. Well, okay. The solution to the big problem that's coming is you're going to be seeing a merging of physical security and cybersecurity. Okay. In today's world, they're pretty much left hand, right hand. But you can have a fence, you can have a camera, you can have a guy sitting in a chair looking at a monitor. Well, when there's a man in the middle attack there, it doesn't really matter if you got a man in that chair or not. But the car is going to get stolen off the lot because someone cut the bolt. They use bolt cutters and went in and got the car. You're going to see that with the Internet of Things, where physical security is going to be equally important, but how are you going to protect anything if you can't trust your network? See, we get back to the network issues of, if your network is hacked, what is the physical security going to do for you? You know, I look at the Internet of Things and knowing that everything is going to be connected, but while things are being connected, it's going to open up even more levels of fraud and physical issues of things being stolen or breaking and entering. You're really going to have to, work with, the government the government is there to govern, but the government isn't there as a technology lead.
Right.
And I've talked to the Belfer Center at Harvard University on the direction of cybersecurity, and they're seeking a private and government partnership to help with this. And that is the only way I can see this coming. So you're going to have a private and government partnership to help protect all of us. And you can't have Republicans, you can't have Democrats. Everyone has to be in this together. And that's one of the hardest things that we're going to be seeing in the United States is we've got a bipolar. No one wants to cooperate with the other party, and the consumer out there is going to continue to lose their information.
Right.
And if they're losing their information, they can lose their physical property too.
Right.
There are so many ways that your personal, private, financial information can be used to steal your physical assets too. There are issues in Denver, Colorado here, where people have gone into the recorder of the deeds. And I don't know how they did it, but they were able to redo the deeds, and people are found that they didn't own their houses anymore. Right. Well, this was one of those things where physical security and financial security, and cyber security should have come together to protect these people. But fraudsters were able to get in the middle and steal people's houses. Well, you steal to steal a house is kind of hard. It's a big thing. It's not like picking this off at a tabletop and sliding it into your pocket. But these problems out here are protecting people's personal, private, financial information, in addition to protecting their cyber security and their physical security, I can't answer all the questions. Right. And I kind of danced around that as much as I could, but we all have to protect our personal, private, financial information, because it's going to end up being a loss of either physical assets, which can be money, or it can be, your identity.
Right. For sure. Okay. So we got a couple more questions, and then we're almost done the stream. I'm gonna combine this one because it's a degree question. Oh,
you want a real long answer, is what you're telling me.
No. We're gonna keep them short. We got a couple more questions. We're gonna almost do a rapid fire here because a few of them are short. So, is having a degree, like one person asked, does a 4-year degree matter? I have a CompTIA A+, Security Plus, but my degree is something different. And really, truly, does a degree really matter in this industry?
I'm gonna say no, it doesn't. If you want to go up and be a CISO or a vice president of IT, you're going to have a degree. But if you are going to be in the industry and you're going to be the best hacker catcher ever, you don't need a degree for that. And a number of the people we've taken from the military, they came out of the enlisted ranks. They did not have college degrees, and we taught them the trade, and they're doing great, and you don't need the degree. If I had a good IT person and I had someone in one hand and I had a degreed person in the other, I would go after the IT person because they actually know what to do. And it's a horrible thing to say, having the college degrees I have, but the experience and knowing what to look for is more important than being able to pass some friggin' test.
Right. No, totally makes sense. So how good is the cooperation between cybersecurity industry leaders in developing multi-tier defense measures and cooperation, or is a more profit generating focus free for all when it comes to cybersecurity defense in depth?
You'll be finding in this year and going forward, we are all partnering more with each other than we ever did in our lives. There was a time when, Anomaly and ThreatStream and everything, well, we were arch enemies. Well, you know what? We're friends because we can complement each other and put up a better defense together. And you're going to see more partners between hardware, peripheral, and software companies, because the challenge is so great that we would both rather split a sale with someone than not make a sale. And together, we can't beat the cyber threat problem. We can't. It's evolving. It's dynamic, and we can't at a static point in time say we won the war. We're not winning the war. We just have to keep up, and hopefully sometime we're going to start getting in front of it. But no, there's a lot more cooperation of sharing of data than there ever was 10 years ago.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. Okay. So 2 last questions. How do you verify there was an attack? If there was no target, genuinely curious. Oh, so how do you verify that there was an attack if there was no target? Generally just curious. So like when you're doing your cybersecurity intelligence, how do you know there's actually going to be an attack if they haven't actually done it?
Okay. When we take a look at potential breaches, we collect a lot of information, and we can hopefully get back to the command and control of that particular attack vector. And from that history of that attack vector, we can say, okay, these people have been active in this space doing such and such, which was bad. Okay. They may not have broken into you yet, but hackers and groups out there like to brag about what they've done. Everyone's trying to get the brass ring of having the best hack. And so in the dark web, we can find that hackers can brag, and they want the esteem of being, a king hacker or whatever. But the point is we collect so much information, and then we can run it against other information sources to get as many artifacts behind things as possible. But more importantly, if we see the attack vector, we can blacklist it and make sure they don't break in.
Right.
So, the best attack is the one that never happened. The best house fire is the one that never happened. That's the smoke alarm thing. The best house fire ever was the house that never caught on fire. So.
Awesome. Okay. So that was, well, last question is, I think this will be the last one for tonight. How long is the industry allowed to keep that data? So is there a limit on,
No, you'll find that since this is still a relatively young industry, a lot of people didn't keep data. They used it. They used their net flow. If the net flow was a year or 2 old, if they didn't want to store it anymore, they just got rid of it. But if you work with a company like ours that is a perpetual pack rat, we've kept this historical data, and we can take our data of cyber threats against, basically any entity and put it on a graph like a mountain range. And then we can take any metric such as share price or factory downtime or customer complaints or temperature or humidity and run any metric against our data to see if there's any causality here.
Right.
And that's a whole other story of being an analyst versus just, being, a threat chaser. It's like, what can we do with this data? And that's what I do. I'm not a threat hunter, but I will look at the data and I will run the data against net flow. I'll run the data against other metrics and see if I can find some causality there. And if I can find the causality in a particular entity or industry or geo or time frame, well, then I can't say it's predictive analysis because I'm going back in time. I can't go forward in time, but I can study the behavior of a number of these malware and threat groups. And the behavior analysis is equally as important as the threat analysis.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jim. We're going to end the stream now. Thank you everyone that's came out, asked Jim some amazing questions. To connect with Jim, I'll get Secure IT, Sec IT guy to actually put the links in the actual chat again, so you guys can check out Jim, LinkedIn, his website, ask him any questions, anything along that line. Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you. That was awesome. I learned a lot from this.
Well, thank you very much for your kindness, and thank your viewers for not trying to just nail me to the wall. I'm more than happy to answer questions and work with people, and I'm just glad that this wasn't Zinger Day. So thank you very much for being kind.
Perfect. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Take care.
Wow, what a great episode. Hopefully you guys learned a lot from the stream. We talked a lot about what's going on in the industry, cyber threat intelligence. Again, check out Jim, go on to his website, ask him a lot of great questions about the cyber intelligence, threat intelligence, really kind of get as much information as you can. This is just such a great, stream that we're on right now. I'd like to thank you guys for all your great questions, all your great insight, what you guys were talking about in the actual stream itself. Thank you for Sec IT guy for moderating. I want to thank Neil so much for, giving us this platform to be able to do this stream and just helping us to get the information out, really kind of getting a lot of great value to you guys. So don't forget that there's going to be a stream on later, I think, and there's going to be one on tomorrow. So just don't forget, software is hackable. Being connected is vulnerable. I'll see you next episode.